It's been said that bonefish provide us practice, tarpon provide us excitement, hermit provide us humility. But what can we provide them in return for so enriching our lives? Our support for the science behind the fight, our support for Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. Please join us today at btt.org. These species' well-being depends on it.
Good evening, and welcome to our annual event benefiting Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. I'm Steve Leisman of CNBC, host for this year's special virtual presentation. The past year has been a tough one for America, the world, and New York. There are hopeful signs of recovery on the horizon, but a full measure of caution and care remains the best guidance. We may not be able to gather in person tonight to swap fishing tales and celebrate BTT's recent accomplishments, but the show must go on. BTT's conservation mission has never been more urgent, and your financial support has never been more needed. We thank our sponsors for their generous commitments, and we encourage you to join with them in supporting BTT. Together, we can make a difference in the conservation of the saltwater flats fishery. It's really very easy. Just visit btt.org and make your donation. We'll share this again throughout the show. Also, don't miss out on the terrific items you'll find in our online auction. It's live now and packed with great gear, bucket list fishing trips, art and collectibles, and much more. Over the next hour, we'll travel virtually around the country to bring you a great show. Tom Brokaw will be joining us from Montana, where he'll receive BTT's highest honor, the Lefty Cray Award for Lifetime Achievement in Conservation. And the cast of Buccaneers and Bones will also be making appearances as they receive the Kurt Gowdy Memorial Media Award. To get us started, I'm going to pass the poll over to BTT's president and CEO, Jim McDuffie. Jim?
Thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone to our show and to our home base here in Miami, Florida. One benefit of a virtual event is we get to share even more with you. This is the Davidson Heritage Room. It's a space filled with BTT history and dedicated to our founder, Tom Davidson. These walls are covered with great memories, from Lefty Cray's tarpon mount to photos of special events and special people who have contributed to our mission, including those now enshrined in the BTT Circle of Honor. That group grows larger tonight with the induction of Tom Brokaw, Michael Keaton, Huey Lewis, Yvonne Chenard, Tom McGuane, and Bill Klein. We congratulate them all and welcome them to this special group. We also invite you to visit the BTT Circle of Honor. You can find us at the Florida Keys History and Discovery Center in Isla Mirada, Florida. This New York event is also an important part of our history. More importantly, it continues to shape our future. Year in and year out, your contributions have funded 20% of our science and conservation budget, which is a tremendous expression of your commitment to the mission. For that, we thank our generous donors, the wonderful New York Committee led by Captain Paul Dixon and Jerry Clower, our host this evening, angling friend Steve Leisman, those who are joining me on the program, Steve Burke, Chris Dorsey, and the great Flip Pallett, and of course, all of you. As Steve mentioned earlier, your support is critical to our mission. We look to this event to help fund important science and conservation initiatives and to sustain the great momentum that we've built over the past 9 years. Since we last gathered in the city, BTT has recorded new scientific discoveries and important conservation wins. From the Bahamas and Florida Keys west to Belize and Mexico, we're bringing science-based solutions to flats conservation. As this show goes live tonight, BTT is working to protect spawning permit in the Florida Keys and sustain the great recovery of bonefish we're seeing across the region. We're working to restore mangroves and conserve bonefish habitats in the Bahamas and prevent unwise coastal development in Belize and restore America's Everglades. You'll also find us in state capitals from Texas to the Carolinas as we work to improve tarpon fishery management. Join us now for a closer look, a retrospective of recent accomplishments guided by the great Flip Pallett.
remember the ominous approach of Hurricane Dorian, a powerful Category 5 storm that struck the Bahamas in September 2019. For what seemed an eternity, Dorian held Abaco and Grand Bahama firmly in the bullseye of what would become the worst natural disaster ever to hit these islands. The toll on people and nature was catastrophic. In the storm's aftermath, Bonefish and Tarpon Trust mobilized quickly to assist friends across the fishing community. With your generous support, BTT provided nearly $500,000 to help fishing guides, lodge staff, and their families rebuild and recover. Now, on the one-year anniversary of this devastating storm, BTT takes another step in the journey, a step to restore a vital part of the flats. Dorian's record-setting winds pummeled the region's red mangroves, yet these walking trees held heaven and earth together to shield coastal communities and protect the fragile flats ecosystem, but at great price. In the days following the storm, the damage was painfully obvious. The once lush mangrove canopy looked more like a forest hit by wildfire or drought. Mangroves are an essential part of the seascape we fish. They serve as a buffer against storms, prevent coastal erosion, and provide rich habitat for bonefish and other marine life. A study by BTT revealed that vast expanses of Bahamian mangroves were impacted by Dorian. In all, an area of 35 square miles was damaged or destroyed, including nearly 74% of Grand Bahama's mangroves and more than 40% of abacos. Also lost in the storm were mangrove seed beds, blown out in many locations, yet critical to the regeneration of the system. Under the best of circumstances, it could take a decade or longer for these areas to recover on their own. Without the seeds of life contained in those beds, some may never make it, exposing the pristine flats to new threats. In partnership with the Bahamas National Trust and MANG, BTT is set to launch the largest mangrove restoration project in Bahamas history. As many as 25,000 mangrove propagules will be collected and transplanted in the hardest hit areas, and the crew doing this work will include local fishing guides, men and women who know these waters best and who have suffered through a major hurricane and global pandemic. This project builds on BTT's long-standing commitment to flats conservation in the Bahamas. Work that includes research to identify and protect bonefish habitats, restore creeks obstructed by roads and development, and teach students in Bahamian schools about the natural treasures that lie just beyond the classroom on the nearby flats. Bahamian waters also continued to be a living laboratory for world-class research over the past year. Among the remarkable new discoveries, BTT scientists documented the world's first complete track of a bonefish spawning aggregation, including their mind-bending dive to more than 400 feet as part of an elaborate and complex spawning ritual. For a species that lives in skinny water and rarely leaves its small home range, this was a first, not just for bonefish, but for science. These findings provide new insights into the complexity of bonefish spawning and important new information that will be helpful in protecting spawning areas. Meanwhile, in Florida, BTT presses on with a multifaceted program aimed at conserving bonefish, tarpon, and permit. These efforts focus simultaneously on the fish, their habitats, and the flats fisheries. In the Florida Keys, anglers are celebrating a resurgence of bonefish. Sustaining this trend will require strong conservation efforts in the future, both in Florida and other locations across the Caribbean that likely provide bonefish to the Keys. BTT's research suggests that Florida's bonefish are coming from spawns both within the Keys and from far distant locations, such as Belize and Mexico. These immigrants are carried to local waters by ocean currents. With fresh knowledge from spawning research in the Bahamas, BTT scientists in Florida have set their sights on finding long elusive bonefish spawning areas in the Keys, where a spawn hasn't been observed in decades. Homing in on these locations will enable BTT to advocate for their conservation. The trail grew warmer in 2019. A 24-inch female bonefish, fitted with an acoustic tag, left her home range on Big Pine Key in December 2019 and was later detected more than 30 miles away. Clearly, the full moon had lured her off the flats to spawn. Her journey helps scientists focus now on ever smaller stretches of water in an otherwise immense ocean. In turn, this draws us closer to identifying the most important spawning area for the Keys. Acoustic tagging was also a valuable tool in tarpon research last year, greatly enhancing our understanding of the species' behavior. BTT is in the home stretch of an ambitious 5-year project to tag 200 tarpon, moving from Florida's west coast across the Gulf of Mexico and north along the South Atlantic to the Chesapeake. The journeys of the Silver King, chronicled by this research, are rewriting the book on tarpon movements and habitat uses. And they already are helping to improve fisheries management. Earlier this year, data from the project were used to support an amendment to North Carolina's tarpon regulations. The measure passed in February, making the species catch and release in state waters. This ends the gallows image of migratory tarpon hanging high from state piers in summer. Going forward, this research will provide us with the most comprehensive view yet of tarpon behavior and recommend additional steps necessary to conserve the species.
Buddy, got him. Oh boy.
A slam on the flats isn't complete without permit. Permit are at the center of one of BTT's most urgent initiatives today. Using acoustic telemetry, scientists have recorded more than 500,000 sonic detections to document permit movement and spawning migrations. The results point to western dry rocks, a 1.3 square mile area 12 miles southwest of Key West, as the most important permit spawning location in the region. Unfortunately, research also shows that more than 1/3 of angled permit at western dry rocks are lost to predators, making even a catch and release fishery unsustainable at that site. Earlier this year, BTT met with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary to voice concerns about western dry rocks and call for a spawning season no fishing closure. An outpouring of support by BTT members and other stakeholders in the months that followed has elevated this issue for further review by FWC. Highlights from the past year include many more accomplishments, too numerous for tonight's logbook. From successful advocacy in support of Everglades restoration to ongoing efforts aimed at protecting imperiled flats habitats across the Caribbean. Despite the challenges of a global pandemic, your generous support and advocacy are sustaining BTT's mission. and helping to ensure better fishing in the future.
Thank you, Flip. To learn more about our work, please visit btt.org and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also hope you will join us for one of the upcoming online presentations with BTT scientists, who will be providing an in-depth look at the topics presented tonight. Now back to you, Steve, for the awards presentations.
Thank you, Jim and Flip. Now on to our award presentations. Among the many people who helped establish BTT in the early days were the late Lefty and Kurt Gowdy. Both are memorialized in the awards we present tonight. Many other ambassadors have followed in their footsteps, including the cast of Buccaneers and Bones, who brought the joy of fishing the flats into our living rooms and inspired us to be better stewards of the environment. Here to introduce the Bucks is Chris Dorsey, president of Dorsey Pictures and creator of the acclaimed television show Buccaneers and Bones.
Hello friends, I'm Chris Dorsey, executive producer of a series called Buccaneers and Bones, and I'm here to announce the 2020 recipients of the Kurt Gowdy Memorial Media Award. Coincidentally, they happen to be the stars of Buccaneers and Bones. It's a series that really began in 2009 when I served on the board of BTT. I went to Bill Klein and Matt Conley, and we talked about ways to really raise the profile of the terrific work that BTT is doing and to really celebrate the science and the research that they were bringing to tell a story about the importance of this flats ecosystem as a nursery of the oceans. So that began a process of talking about a television series and could we get our celebrity friends, Bill Klein was talking about, to come on board, and they said yes. So we went to ESPN with the cheeky title of Pirates of the Flats, and they said, we love it, let's do it. And that series later became Buccaneers and Bones on Outdoor Channel. And it ran for 8 seasons, and it wasn't just a fishing show. It was really a chance to showcase with our anglers out in the field, on the flats, with scientists and researchers, biologists, the intricacies of this amazing habitat and just how important it is to all of our oceans. So that really created an amazing amount of support for BTT, but none of this would have happened if these celebrity individuals had not lent their name, their likeness, and their passion and dedication to conservation to the cause at no charge. So today we celebrate the recipients of this amazing award, Michael Keaton, Huey Lewis, Yvonne Chenard, Bill Klein, and Tom McGuane. And before we go, I want to just leave you with some highlights from 8 seasons of Buccaneers and Bones and all the fun that we had along the way celebrating these amazing ecosystems. Enjoy.
Look at that fish.
Big smooch.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain to people why we spend so much time staring at the water, because there's always something going on around you.
Set it, set it, set it. Hey. Tip down, let it go. Set it again. Tip down, tight line. Go again, set it with the rod. I am. Okay, tip down. Just keep it down. Keep it down, let it go.
Big.
Tip down.
I never realized how great I was. Y'all can kiss my ass.
You want to be in an office or you want to be here?
This has got to be kind of a traveling camaraderie circus, if you will. And Mrs. Brokaw says to me, when does this stop?
This having fun isn't so easy sometimes, you know.
For me, it's just one of the best sports that you can possibly imagine.
Fishing is always fun,
Michael, look like you've done this before, man.
but when you catch them, it's a little more fun.
This is actually hunting. That's why I like this so much.
It's constantly entertaining.
That's a good 4 or 5 pound fish right there.
If the fish are there, I can get them to take.
Holy sh**.
Usually.
There's probably 10 things that need to go right for you to hook a permit on a fly.
Whoa! You're the man.
We have reached the time in the life of the planet and humanity's demands upon it when every fisherman will have to be a river keeper, a steward of marine shallows, a washman on the high seas. We are beyond having to put back what we have taken out. We must put back more than we take out. We must make holy war on the enemies of aquatic life as we have against gill netters, polluters, and drainers of wetlands.
For the American people, they've taken a poll and they said that saving the planet is 19th on people's priorities. Well, saving the planet is number 1.
Bonefish Tarpon Trust has done a lot to make bonefish stakeholders in the economic universe here, so that in any dispute about the values of this place, BTT, has given them standing in the argument.
Within 15 seconds of having something foreign touch them, bonefish emit a scent that trails in the water, and the shark can smell that scent.
Clip off the fin and check the DNA, do the genetic test on that little bonefish.
And that'll grow back in 2 weeks.
I'm just such a believer in what these guys are doing.
As you get older, Tom can really fill you in on this.
You got your story? I got a lot of lies ready. You got your stories?
Whatever Michael said was right is what happened.
Hold on.
At this age and stage of our lives, there's just no better way for us to spend time together than doing this is what we love.
That's unbelievable.
And at the end of the day, sitting around and gassing about it.
We've learned that it's better to be lucky than to be good.
I mean, how many places can you go where you can walk a flat and fish for bonefish and permit?
The BTT, it's half the reason I like to be involved in this.
See everybody.
I don't really care about that.
Who wants to be on TV, Mr. Bone? Mwah. Thank you, brother.
These are the tales of Buccaneers and Bones.
Ladies and gentlemen, Grammy award-winning singer and songwriter Huey Lewis.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I have a lot of people to thank for this award, not the least of which is Bill Klein, who first suggested me, and Chris Dorsey, who included me in this fabulous group. I thank you both very much. And, you know, I have to point out that fishing with the likes of Tom Brokaw, Tom McGuane, Michael Keaton, Bill Klein, Yvonne Chenard, and the late, great Lefty Cray is not exactly heavy lifting. You know, and to be receiving an award for doing that really is kind of silly. But I do love BTT because I think they do a wonderful job and they're committed to the resource, which is everything. These are big, big questions, big challenges we face, and that is in habitat and the environment. And so if I can do anything to call attention to that, I'm happy to do that. Interestingly, this little group, although I was kind of a latecomer to the affair. I only did 3 seasons, but I got to meet the great Lefty Cray, and that was real special. My father was a huge Lefty Cray fan, and unfortunately he passed away before I met Lefty, but and he saw a lot of my accomplishments, you know, hit records and a Grammy Award and that sort of stuff. But if my dad had known that I was going to fish with Lefty Cray, that would have taken the cake. And Lefty and I got to be pretty good friends, actually, and I think this is the way fishing is. As the group of us, with both Toms and Yvonne and everything, it's funny, even though we only fished together and I'd never met them before, we've gotten pretty close, and this is what fishing does. So I want to thank everybody for this, and mostly I want to encourage people to look and get involved with Bonefish Tarpon Trust. They're doing a great job. They deserve your support. Thanks very much.
Tom McGuane is known to the world as an acclaimed writer with 10 novels, short stories, and screenplays to his credit. These include 92 in the Shade, which was nominated for a National Book Award. But we know him as an accomplished angler and great friend to conservation. Tom joins us now to accept the Kurt Gowdy Memorial Media Award from his summer home in Montana.
Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate the kind words. We all do. This is an honor for all of us. We particularly appreciate the focus it's putting on the natural world that we have used as recreationists and have come to believe we need to do more to protect it because the pressures on it are enormous. The oceans in particular are polluted in many ways. We're kind of making a case for the corner of the world that we care most about by having fun in that milieu without losing track of the overview to preserve it as it is and to make it an example to other parts of the ocean that are equally endangered. I know it's been very valuable to people defending the Keys fisheries to have Bonefish Tarpon Trust actually define what the contribution of flats fishermen is to the economies there, so that it cannot be dismissed as a sort of frivolous outlier to other kinds of tourism or indeed the commercial fishing industry. I think this evening will serve as a reminder to continue to support Bonefish Tarpon Trust, and that we have increased your understanding of what we're doing for the world we share out there, and that we can count on you in the future. Thanks so much.
Accepting their Kurt Gowdy Memorial Media Award jointly tonight are actor Michael Keaton and BTT board member, formerly with Patagonia, Bill Klein.
Hey, first, before we even start, I want to thank Chris Dorsey, for, he's the guy who really kind of headed this whole thing up.
And Chris was great. Obviously, when we first started this, the idea germinated. We were in Colorado.
Yeah.
And we just started that new working board for Bonefish Tarpon Trust.
Oh, really? I don't think I even knew.
Yeah, and Chris said, obviously, he said, on the media, TV, if you have TV, everyone's going to see you. I said, but we can't afford $100,000 to do a show. We're not profit. He goes, well, ESPN's looking for a saltwater show. And I said, well, I have an idea. I know some pretty well-known folks out there who love to saltwater fish.
Right.
And maybe we can get them in and do a conservation story, which you don't really see on TV shows.
Wow.
And he goes, well, who'd you have in mind? I said, well, we have, Tom Brokaw, you. Then we had Tom McGuane, Yvonne Chenard. Then I said, Lefty Cray. He goes, you got to be kidding me. So he goes, well, I'm going to be at the fishing show. He goes, let me pitch it to ESPN. So ESPN said, well, we don't have money to do it, but let's take it to Disney.
Yeah.
So they talked with VP at Disney. He said, if you can get those guys, we'll pay for the show.
Oh, wow.
So we never had to pay a nickel for the show.
Yeah, that's great.
And then you remember the first time we all came together.
Oh, the first time might have been the best time.
Yeah.
Actually.
I mean, everyone's coming together, and it's so great because people kind of knew each other, and not everybody knew Lefty.
Right.
So that was a really great awakening. And I remember the float plane coming in.
Oh, yeah.
McGuane's buddy, and they had Yvonne and McGuane, and then everyone sat down at that show at the lodge, at the Abaco Lodge, and Lefty started to regale everyone with these great stories.
Oh, man. He's got more. He had more stories. What did Lefty used to say? I only eat 4 colors.
4, yeah.
Yellow for mustard, I think. Brown for bologna or something. White for bread.
Brown for peanut butter.
Well, brown for peanut butter. And then I guess that's it.
Steak.
Steak, right. I only eat 4 colors.
So those are fun times. But Michael and I we had a great time all the time fishing. We'd bring the juju, we'd always get a lot of fish.
Definitely best. If you had to average it out, I would always request him, because by the time you average it out, you and I were raking in some boats.
We had
Seriously, we did. We had good juju going.
That was such a great time, and all those different locations we got to go to.
What was really fun that I enjoyed a lot was one of my favorite things to do was to tag the bones, because then you felt like I'm actually maybe contributing something here, and it also put the pressure on, because before you could tag a bonefish, you had to catch a bonefish.
What's funny is you're walking along with a scientist, waiting, go, what's that? What's that?
Yeah,
it's like Mr. Science.
Yeah, I know, it was fun, really fun. That added a really great dimension to the whole thing.
But what's interesting is all these different people came together, and as we were saying, not everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
But spending a day in a boat with people, it got to be, just great. We got to know everybody and really enjoyed our company. So each year, we all look forward to this show.
Oh yeah, those first few are my favorites, though. I think because of what you just said. No one really I knew Brokaw a little bit, but then like you just said, when you're in a boat with a guy all day long and you start, and man, there's no one more fun to sit in a boat with than McGuane. He can boy can go forever. I'm a little more than half Irish. He's full on Irish, so the gift of gab in our boats was like endless.
It's just nonstop, and his quick wit just kept us going all the time.
Yeah.
God, that's just so funny. But finally realized we all have this common passion.
Yeah.
Not only for the fish, but the resource as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really kept people coming back.
Oh.
And those originally shows, sitting around, having those little discussions. Really.
And it really meant a lot, to be part of something was fun, but it's really, really important, just the micro of bonefish and tarpon, but the macro of, environmental concerns, So, even though it was fun, you actually felt like maybe I'm contributing a little something here.
Oh, exactly.
Congratulations to this year's recipients of the Kurt Gowdy Memorial Media Award. We appreciate their many contributions to BTT and the conservation of the flats. We'll make sure that Yvonne Chenard, who was unable to join us tonight, receives his award as well. Just a friendly reminder, our online auction is still open, but it will close very soon at the top of the hour, so place those bids. You don't want to miss your chance at those wonderful fishing trips to the Bahamas, Belize, and the Seychelles, a cast and blast in Argentina, and so much more. And what's an auction without raising the paddle? You can raise your paddle tonight by texting to the number on the screen with your most generous contribution. All proceeds benefit BTT's mission. Lefty Cray attended the very first New York dinner nearly a decade ago. His jokes and infectious laughter filled the room that night and on many occasions that followed. Lefty was a beloved figure in the fishing community, a preeminent fly angler, casting instructor, and writer. He received many honors during his lifetime, including induction into the IGFA Hall of Fame. He was also a major force behind the establishment and development of Bonefish Tarpon Trust, so it's fitting that the organization's highest honor bears his name. Tonight, Tom Brokaw receives the Lefty Cray Award for Lifetime Achievement in Conservation. Here to introduce Tom is former NBC Universal Chairman Steve Burke.
It's my pleasure to introduce our honoree, Tom Brokaw. I've known Tom for a long, long time, about 20 years. Our paths first crossed right here in Montana. I was looking to try to buy a place, and Tom and I had both been in the media business, and I reached out to Tom and said, I'm looking for a place in the West Boulder, and there's a guy named Tom McGuane who I think might sell me his ranch. Tom put his hand on my shoulder. He said, Steve, Tom McGuane will never sell you his ranch. You should find one, but it won't be his. Lo and behold, a few years later, in 2010, I think it was, I became the CEO of NBC Universal. NBC Universal has a lot of different businesses, but none as complicated as NBC News. So I called Tom and said, I'm new, I've never really had experience being in charge of a news division. Would you help me out? I didn't hear from Tom for about a month. And then one day out of the blue, he called me and said, there's something going on today in the news division that you should know about and you should participate in and applaud. He said, it turns out, due to the Arab Spring, which was happening at the time, Brian Williams has flown into Baghdad secretly, and he's going to start the broadcast of NBC Nightly News from the airport in Baghdad. And it's dangerous and technically complicated. And what I think you ought to do is go down to the editing room tonight and watch it with the people there, and at the end ask for a satellite connection and call Brian Williams and say thank you and congratulations. I did that, and when I was coming back from that, I thought, what a wonderful thing Tom Brokaw has done for me. You know, here's a way for me to show I care. There was nothing in it for Tom, and he was just thinking about me, and that's the kind of person Tom is. And I realized over time that Tom really was the heart and soul of NBC News for many, many years, and is to this day. And every once in a while, Tom would call me up and say, you should be very proud of the coverage that NBC is bringing to the presidential election or some other issue. And every once in a while, when the going got tough, I'd see Tom in the halls and he'd say, it's about time we opened up an office in Montana somewhere. I'm thinking Big Timber or Bozeman. But we had wonderful interactions at NBC. And also over time, we had wonderful interactions fishing. I remember one time, Tom called me and said, I know you're going to Montana. I have a feeling you're going to be taking a company plane. Is there a way you could give a friend of mine a lift? I said, sure, Tom. We have seats on the plane. I'd love to do that. We're leaving on Friday. Who's your friend? And he said, Lefty Cray. I said, Lefty Cray? I get to fly on a plane with Lefty Cray? He said, not only that, but when we get here, we can all fish together. I think we floated on the Big Hole. And I spent 4 hours flying from New York to Montana with Lefty Cray, which was a dream come true. When we got to fish the Big Hole, I was put in the boat with Lefty. I got the front of the boat, and I was a little nervous, but I managed to hook up on a decent fish with a 40 or 50 foot cast. I was kind of proud of myself and released the fish. I said, Lefty, what do you think of that? He said, that was okay, but I can really improve your cast. I said, what do you mean? I just caught that fish. Everything's fine. He goes, no, I can improve your cast. But to see Tom with Lefty, to me, was a real treat. He revered him, and I know the fact that this award is in Lefty's name means a lot to Tom. Tom means a lot to me, means a lot to NBC News. He certainly means a lot to anybody who's ever picked up a fly rod and cast. He's a great angler. He's a great lover of this country and the American West. And it is really my privilege to introduce our honoree, Tom Brokaw.
I want to begin by thanking my colleague and my friend Steve Burke for that wonderful introduction. And Steve got out of NBC in New York just in time. He eluded the great catastrophe that has visited that city and has so, in many ways, also damaged our business, the network business. But he left such a legacy, and the organization is in such good shape, even though they're going through difficult times now. They will recover, and they'll be a model for coming back from these deep, dark times. And Steve left that legacy behind as well. Now, let me just say about the Lefty Kreh Conservation Award. When I was first starting to fly fish, I wanted to somehow get involved with Lefty Kreh because I knew about his reputation. It didn't quite work out. And then we got involved in this program of conservation, fly fishing, and especially in the flats of the Bahamas and other places. And we became fast friends. And through it all, what I always admired about Lefty was his commitment, not to his celebrity, but to his passion about fishing and conservation and doing the right thing about it. I never failed to learn something about all of that when I was in a boat with him. On the other hand, there were times when I was in a boat with him when it was nothing except kind of amusing and memorable. We were fishing in the Abacos, and we had two guides that were being quiet about it, but they couldn't believe they were guiding Lefty Kreh. So we pulled up for lunch, and one of them got up and wanted to show off his cast a little bit. I said to Lefty, not too bad. And he said, yeah, but he's, Lefty had this funny verbal tick. He is dumb. And the guide heard him said, what'd you say, Mr. Kreh? He said, I said, you're not too bad, but you're dumb. And he said, I've been doing this a long time. Lefty says, let me instruct you. He said, give me your cat. No, that doesn't work. Now, when I tell you to stop on the back cast, stop then. When I tell you to stop on the front cast, stop then. The guy said, oh, okay. So he throws it back, and Lefty says, stop. He does the forward cast. Lefty says, stop. Guy threw another 25 feet. It got kind of wide-eyed. And Lefty said, dummy, you're getting smarter all the time. So it was really one of my very favorite stories about him. But most of all, what I liked about him was his humanity and also his ability to be a major, major figure in fly fishing and not take himself too seriously. He once told me about the first time he got a call from Ted Williams, who was a big fly fisherman, and Ted Williams, in his bombastic way, said, hey, tell me you're good at what you got to come down and fish with me. He said, well, I don't sure I have. No, you got to come down and fish with me. Lefty didn't pay any attention to spectator sports. So at the end of the conversation, he said, oh, I'm going to come down. And Ted said, I'll meet you on the dock. And Lefty actually said to Ted Williams, pardon me, Mr. Williams, what do you look like? Well, how I recognize you. And they became fast friends because on their first casting lesson, Ted threw, way out there, and Lefty took the fly rod away from him and said, watch this, and threw another 25 feet. And Ted Williams was not a modest man, but he became a modest man in Lefty's presence. So it's a great honor for me to have my name in any way associated with Lefty Kreh, because we became friends outside of fishing. He came to our ranch at one point when my 2-year-old grandson was there, and my gregarious granddaughter introduced him at breakfast, and Lefty kind of got involved with him. And by the end of breakfast, Lefty Kreh was my grandson's godfather. And someday he'll have a full appreciation of just how much that means. So we can't do enough to honor him, and we can't do enough to remind everyone that he was a symbol not just of a great fly fisherman, a great rock on tour, but he was also a symbol of the importance and the obligation that we all have to conservation. I know we're frustrated during this time, so what we need to do as individuals and collectively is to organize ourselves around something in which we can have an impact. And nothing is more important than the impact that we can have on the fisheries, freshwater and saltwater especially. So, once again, it's a great honor. I'm not entirely deserving, but I'm thrilled to be associated with Lefty Kreh.
Congratulations to Tom Brokaw and to all of tonight's honorees. And thanks to you for joining us. To learn more about Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, please visit BTT.org and help bring science to the fight with your most generous contribution. Speaking of which, you have just a few more minutes to grab a great item or two from our auction. And please make sure to join us again next year on October 19th, 2021, when we gather to honor Tony James with the Lefty Kreh Award for Lifetime Achievement in Conservation and Captain Will Benson, who will receive the BTT Flat Stewardship Award. Thanks again. Good night.
I slept all night on a big white ship. Seagulls were dancing all around. I woke up with a sunrise on the sea. Such a priceless gift to me. The salty breeze and the waves, the slow pace. The salty breeze and the waves, the man's a right place.
I set the hook nice and hit it, Dean. I'm so fast you can't believe it.
It's been said that bonefish provide us practice, tarpon provide us excitement, permit provide us humility. But what can we provide them in return for so enriching our lives? Our support for the science behind the fight, our support for Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. Please join us today at btt.org. These species' well-being depends on it.